Well, hello everybody. My name is Asia Hamilton with Norwest Gallery of Art and Norwest Community Collaborative. This is our final Tuesday talk from our Tuesday Talk series with Womxnhouse. We have talked with some amazing Black women artists, curators, art, you know, creators, all kinds of various different people for this talk. And we are at our final conversation. I'm super excited to bring these two together. I actually been knowing Sadie since my Columbia days. And she has always been an amazing curator, photographer also at one point, now DJ, and as well as, just all things fabulous. And she introduced me to Janice, who is an awesome, amazing person as well. So I'm so grateful to have both of them on this talk. Womxnhouse is it is an artist residency for women artists of color and curators of color. We provide a platform for them to just express themselves freely and provide opportunities like this to be able to, meet with art professionals to help advance their career, as well as use that space to just commune and build relationships that will take them to the next level. I started Womxnhouse because when I was coming along, I'm always been kind of like the oddball or the underdog, and kind of had to create my own lane and space, and it made it a little bit more difficult for me to take my career to the next level because I didn't have that mentorship to do so. So this is an opportunity for, these ladies to give back and to share about their experiences, share about their journey, share about, what they're doing and what they plan to do in their communities, and, and just give some advice to our audience. So thank you so much for participating in this. And I hand it over to Miss Sadie Woods, who is going to be leading our conversation.
Thank you so much, Asia, for bringing us all together today. Shout out to Womxnhouse and all the artists that are participating this round and everyone that's tuning into this program. I think it's full circle, right, to come back and actually do something with you, Asia, after knowing you for so long and being involved in the arts together through school and otherwise. And today talking with Janice, who's also been a longtime friend of mine and collaborator through multiple projects, from corporate hospitality gigs to arts and culture, to also doing curatorial work nationally now at this point. It's really exciting to be able to be in conversation in this way, which we haven't actually done since we've known each other. So
we haven't, have we? We have not done this. This is so funny.
We have not done this.
Here we go. First time for everything.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask you to share a bit more just about yourself and your background and how you arrived to the arts, because you, I think, have a pretty interesting entry point, which is not necessarily through the traditional academic arts training.
Yeah, so my my entry into the art world was a bit, or has been a bit, atypical, I think, in a sense of most of the time when people hear that I was deputy director at the Contemporary Arts Museum in Houston, that I've curated at multiple institutions, advisory, all these different things. It's like the thought is that my work or my work or my trajectory would have been arts academic centered, and that would have been like the stepping stone that I followed. And really it wasn't. I majored in business in college, and then marketing. And I took a few by choice, like art classes, like art history. I took a film class. For the short period of time, I thought I might be a filmmaker. But really, it wasn't that I was going after a specific position. It was, and someone asked me that really yesterday. It was like, how did I know what I wanted to do or whatever when I grew up? I was like, after second grade, I didn't have, when I decided in second grade that I wasn't going to be an attorney. Um, After that, I never picked another like job title. And I don't know why that is. I think I just, from that point, was like, how do I want to experience life? And then what will be the things what are the decisions that I would make that would line up with that decision? So it's like thinking about the arts, which happened to lead me to the arts. But before that, I mean, whether it was like leading student tours and, you know, before I got into art, I would work with MTV Spring Break and like was doing student tours and living in Mexico for like 2.5 months out of the year. And then I came to Chicago and worked in the production department at NBC, but then also started working with Jesse Jackson and Operation Push in his production department and like all these different things while I was in college. And at the same time, while I was doing all of these different things, my friends, I didn't consider myself an artist at the time. And I have to like openly, I recall I feel like you were there, Sadie, maybe you weren't, but I feel like it's a core memory. And I'm trying to remember what other friend was there. It was at Hyde Park Art Center. We were coming down the stairs and it was like Tempest Hazel, which many of you may know who she is. Tempest was introducing me to someone, or I feel like she was introducing me to someone. And she was like, this is Janice, and she's an artist. And I was like, well, and it was like the thing that I always do. And she was like, well, are you or are you not? And I was like, I am, you know. It was so I finally had, because I'd always hid in a way, I realized that in that moment, I realized that I was kind of like hiding behind administration. And it was like, I didn't have to answer to myself or my practice as an artist because I was always completely like engulfed in like administration, director of arts and culture, or a program manager, or curator, etc. I didn't have to really be responsible for my own, not even be really responsible, but I didn't have to like be vulnerable. It's not even about being responsible, but I didn't have to be vulnerable in that way with my practice and like being seen when I just wanted to make at that time. And I've learned to kind of like go back and forth with that. But essentially, like Preston on evolved. Even though I was in business, I had a lot of friends that were artists, and I just wanted to help them. And it was really about adding like the artistic elements, I mean, the business elements of what I knew and being able to share that with them. Now I know it as like arts ecosystem or arts management or like different things like that. But at the time, it was just like, how much should we charge? Should I charge for this piece of art? Will you help me with my album release party? How should I respond to this email? You know what I mean? Like it would just be whatever was necessary to support the homies or people that I believed in, you know, further their artistic careers. But at some point, I started spending more time doing that than like the things I was actually doing for work. And it was like, okay, either I need to fold this, like clearly it's a vocation, either it needs to become like a nonprofit or like a consultancy, both of which are business models, but I needed to understand which one I wanted to go forward with. And so then I started, you know, a consultancy and really going from working with corporate in the marketing world where I was doing like website development and this, all kind of other things that I have gone and buried and don't do anymore. But now really focusing outside of corporate into individuals and individual artists and what their needs. And so I started doing educational lectures on arts entrepreneurship and stuff like that. But that's when I started working with institutions. And so I did these same lectures and workshops at like the Brooklyn Museum or in Namdi. I did a series there in Detroit like years ago, and other institutions as well. And then coming back to Chicago, doing the same thing, both through positions and otherwise. And so fast forward, then becoming the director of music and social programming for Kimpton Hotels and Restaurants, primarily focusing on Chicago, then other parts of the Midwest, and then Austin. You know, that was where, that wasn't the only place, but this was one of the major points of our collaboration. So I was able to start to get into not just art, but really digging more so, because it was really like 90-10 or 85, you know, whatever, on the music side. And so development and execution of a full music program for an entire hotel in a major city. And so that's DJs, live performances, you know, and so from that point, it was really great to see. It was a very interesting period in time, because at the time, if you remember, Sadie, think about the bands that were playing in Volume 39. You know, this is like Corey Wilkes Trio, Makai McCraven, like Ernest Dawkins, like these are, you know, Junius Paul,
Megan McNeil.
yeah, Megan McNeil, multiple times, like still can't get enough of her. Michael Collier, like these are all people that were just like greats, you know, coming in, and many others. But I'm just saying the entire point was like, it was beautiful to just see artists continuing to be able to share the best of who they were, and that's music. Not even getting up to upstairs, Sadie was doing like 3 nights a week on minimum, in addition to like special events, and produced a vinyl album, you know, for the brand. So post Chicago, post Austin, leading into, you know, where I am now, alongside many other projects, I always say it's like the same 3 things a million different ways: arts, culture, community. My most recent full-time job outside of my consultancy, Bond Creative Advisors and Selenite Arts Advisory, which I partner with Sadie on, that focuses on curatorial work. One of our key clients is the August Wilson African American Cultural Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where we just opened last Friday a solo show with Shawnee Crow from Chicago, Illinois. And we just opened another show at the same time, Amber Robles Gordon, the architect, the Oracle, that also opened at the same space. Right now we have work up there from Robert Hodge to, what are the other artists? Thaddeus Mosley, to, we have like several other artists that are on view right now. Alicia Wormsley and Lee Harris, yeah, and several others. Became the deputy director of the Contemporary Arts Museum in Houston. Now I continue to consult and have more things on the way. So it's very long-winded, but essentially, I've had a lot of different artistic and creative experiences, but they've all been in a lot of different places, but they all been rooted, again, in those same 3 things: the art, the culture, and community. I'm interested in the development, preservation, and expansion of hyperlocal creative economies, and really facilitating space to walk more people from the diaspora through the front door of the public and private sector. And that may be in the form of institutions, hospitality, municipalities, or it may be original projects. So, you know, whatever role I'm in that moment, that's the real like North Star.
Thank you for contextualizing all that. And I really like the fact that, you know, it shows as an example that, you know, all roads kind of feed each other, right? So you grow and you build on experiences, and in some way, shape, or form, they inform each other down the line. And those relationships continue to grow and evolve in different ways. Can you talk a bit about curatorial work? I know that you came to it a little bit later. It may be after you were like in the process of embracing the fact that you're actually an artist, in addition to being a businesswoman. But can you talk about maybe the balance between those things and curatorial work, and then your focus within your curatorial work at this moment.
Absolutely. I mean, I think again, there was some internal resistance to calling myself a curator. I didn't know what a curator was until I was maybe 25. I didn't know any curators that I knew of. But, you know, again, being in an environment such as Chicago, you're able to meet, that is one of, people talk about representation matters, but it's not just about photographs. You know, it's like being in a city like Chicago where you have a lot of power and education and just raw amazingness and polished amazingness seated within Black women in the city and the art world, intergenerationally, you know, whether it's from administration to artistry, whether it's Angelique Powers or Tracy Hall or, you know, or Candace Hunter or, you know, I mean, you name it, just the plethora of artists, or Dr. Margaret Burroughs, or, you know, all of these different amazing, Amina Dickerson, you know, Black women that have really not only developed, seeded, but expanded for decades what it means to be in the arts and culture ecosystem of Chicago. It really gave me a lot of confidence to explore like different, not titles so much as the positioning. It was like, okay, what is the thing? If these are things that I want to do, I want to highlight and share the work of artists that I think their message individually or collectively is important or inspirational or just beautiful, which of course is also inspirational, and not paying too much attention to who is emerging versus seasoned versus etc. So my curatorial style has always been, especially if it's a group show specifically, is that I will put people at many points, or place artists that are at many points in their career, depending on how many people are in the show, within the same exhibition. Because for me, it's not about just using an artist's name to make a show important. It's like the show is important. And it's important because all of the voices that are a part of this show contribute to a collective vision. And that in itself is inherently powerful, you know? And so of course there may be some highlights or there may be some key pieces, but I believe in the pre-existing value of creatives. And I believe that on a long enough timeline, it's been proven, you know, even if an artist isn't great at something, you know, it's really about being able to be committed, you know, and putting in those hours, or really like looking at your work or yourself honestly and saying, what do I really want out of my work? And so my curatorial practice in the beginning started off really more experimental in a sense of just wanting to be the organized brain that shows the work of people that I thought were really exciting and cool and had something to say. And I just found places to put it, whether it was at an event or at a show or at a showcase, whether it was in Chicago or New York, etc. We would just figure it out. But then later on, it became more of okay, this is what curators do. You know, you're able to bring these visions or these collective groups into these spaces and expand upon the initial visions. And so started to do that more officially. The first show I would say that was really more expansive and I really thought through was Abandoned Margins, Policing the Black Female Body. And that show opened in Chicago, then it went to Grand Rapids at UICA. And I believe it was like 22 artists. And now I think about the scale of what we did for that show, you know, what it did for that show. And I'm just like, wow, I wonder if, because I didn't know initially what type of labor would go into producing a show like that, if I knew then what I know now, would I have still done that show with the number of artists and in that way? And the answer is, I'm glad I won't have to find out, because there's a part of me that is just so glad that I didn't know what I didn't know, that it gave me just kind of like the blind courage to say, I don't know exactly how to do this 100%, but I can employ and get the support of community and people that can support me in facilitating this idea. And I still see it as a very important exhibition. And so many of those artists since that exhibition have gone on to have some really amazing careers. And so I really am proud of being able to show a lot of their work earlier on. And so my curatorial practice now, then the last part I'll say is like, then there's another part of it that's more commercial or client driven. So like, for example, our work with the August Wilson African American Cultural Center in Pittsburgh. It's a nonprofit, it's a beautiful space, art and performance center and cultural space in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But it's like we produce these exhibitions within the context of what fits within their narrative, not just what would be great shows or exhibitions, because we have a number of those different ideas, but like thinking about what does it mean to have certain artists and their work or certain aspects of their work within the context of the August Wilson name or in Pittsburgh. So for example, pre-Shiny Crow, the last show was Garrett Bradley, American Rhapsody. Before Garrett Bradley was Derek Adams. And it wasn't Derek Adams's like pop color, a lot of the work that people are familiar with. It was his work that was based off of the Green Book, which is absolutely brilliant. But again, it's like curating within the context of, client needs. And so, yeah, I think my curatorial process or journey has been as vast as my experiences. I really just show up as a curator in the way that I'm needed. But as far as like my intention is always the same. I think it's to, walk people from the diaspora through the front doors of opportunities, whether again, if it's with municipalities, institutions, public, private sector, individual, and then also allowing for a spectrum of creative voices to speak together within a space, or really pushing a singular artist further along to diversify the way that they talk about their work through their visual narrative.
That's great. I'm moving locations, so don't mind. I'm a little bit mobile right now, but okay. Yeah, I think that's great, and I think that it's very clear in the work that you've been producing and the stuff that we worked on together as well. And something I think that's really been important as a staple is, focusing on hyper-local creative economies while also incorporating more established artists so that there's a lot of cross-pollination between the artists in that way, and also thinking about age range as well. So there's quite a lot of diversity within the artists that are represented in the shows, and it breaks down the hierarchy of how artists are treated as well. Can you talk a bit about intentionality and thinking about relationships within the curatorial practice and art production and cultural working, how you move intentionally within those spaces and how you build community? You're muted.
I think that that's such an important, I'm gonna get a t-shirt that says you're on mute. I think that that would be the first t-shirt with letters I wear across the front. So what I will say is that I think that intentionality is so I want to use the word important, but I think that that's like a really general term. To be more specific, I think it's really core of how I move and operate, not as a curator, just as a curator, but as an administrator and an artist. And I would say just as a person, I think that in order to be an idealist, a true idealist, you have to be a realist. Otherwise, you have to be a realist first. Otherwise, there's a lot of like naivete stacked in there. And so I don't romanticize what it means to be in the art world, which is essentially the art business. Because there's the purest art form, which has no timeline, which has just a sense of like, it's just creation. And a creative has to create, otherwise we don't feel fulfilled. And so I'm never surprised when visual artists have tons and tons of sketches and drawings that no one else has seen, or a million ideas in their head, or stacks of canvases. It's like, because we have to birth these ideas. But on the spectrum, there's the other side where there are deadlines, there are milestones, there are productions, there are budgets, there are a lot of unsexy things that are part of the business side. And so I feel like I don't romanticize that, but at the same time, because my intention really drives what I do, or the vocation or intentions, which again is walking diasporic people through the front door, creating pathways and pipelines, being a part of and are bearing witness to the growth and beauty of creators, being able to connect people that can be sources and resources for each other. It builds an energy and a momentum within me that I enjoy. I love seeing people that are truly in the work and are willing to work, not be perfect, but be willing to like evolve. And that's one of the key parts of like this industry and success, is being the master of your own evolution, whatever that looks like. It doesn't mean that your work will change form. It might, but your work, the way you talk about it, might just evolve. So I really enjoy that. I would say that also thinking about it, even from an administrative context, going back to seeing pre-existing value, I think a lot about social and physical impact zones, like whether it's like the impact of an institution on a specific community, whether it's within a certain mile radius or broadly just being within that city. Of course, I thought and worked a lot around those things when, whether I was at Eman in Chicago or at CAM in Houston. A lot of it wasn't just about programming. It wasn't about just how many people would come to this festival or concert or see this sculpture or come to this show. It was like, what does impact mean for this institution or for this group? And what are the decisions that we're making to support the desired impact to these communities, whether again, we're talking about community in the hyperlocal sense, or even looking at other cities or institutions or artist groups that are similar. So I think that I say that my intentions have not changed, but the way that they come about has evolved. And so it may be something where I'm thinking a lot now about civic art and design. That's another gap. They're always thinking about equity. And so thinking about civic art and design, there's a huge gap in people of color, particularly Black people, particularly Black women, and civic art and design commissions around the world. We could say flat-footed why that is, but a lot of it is technical as well. The question is, what is the gap? How many of our artists are ready for a six-figure, civic art and design commission? Do you know how to put together a budget? Do you know any architects? Do you know any engineers? Do you know any general contractors? And you don't have to have all of those answers right now, but should you have the opportunity, who do you know that you could reach out to that will support you and be able to be a viable candidate or be able to move forward successfully with these opportunities? That is really important. And that is the next step for a lot of artists. So I think the intention is going to continue to be to create space for great thinkers and creatives to both share, shine, and explore. But then also for myself personally, the ability and the capacity to take these things and adapt and mobilize them in multiple markets. Because I'm always excited to see, I mean, how many cities have we worked in together at this point? You know, a couple at this point.
At least three.
A lot. So the thing is that, but we've always been us. But how the work and the offering is experienced in different cities it's been different each time. But that's the whole thing. Like that's how you really sharpen your tools. Not saying that you have to move there, but as an administrator and as an artist, seeing the difference between how my work was received in Latvia versus Chicago or Atlanta versus Los Angeles, like that was important for me because it gave me, it wasn't about just people seeing it, but it kind of gave me some information about like, this is how this different human experience is responding to my work. So that went past your question, but so I'll just stop there.
No, I think that was great. I wanted to open it up to see if there's any questions from the audience, actually.
I got a few actually. Hey, I think the first question, because I just Googled it, like the civil art design, because like I've been into like development of Detroit and like road maps. Like I literally study maps since I was 11 years old. Like I can literally zoom into like different places, like bridges, like, you know, anything, neighborhoods around the world. But how did you get in? Did you already into that world? Or
civic art design?
Yeah.
So my first civic art and design project was when I was the director of arts and culture at Eman, the MLK Living Memorial that's in Market Park. That was the first project I worked on. And so I cut my teeth in civic art design or public art there. And it was really almost like a trial by fire because I had to learn about permitting and partnerships and working with the park districts and, you know, everything environmental and all these different things. And I learned so much and built relationships with artists, John Weber, Sonia Henderson, who's been a great friend and collaborator, amazing artist to this day. And so then from there, sometime after, I was asked to be one of the curators for the Year of Public Art for the city of Chicago. And so there were multiple projects that I work on, from murals to mosaics to sculpture, so many different places. I think it was 14 projects total. I think all but 3 are still up. One was a more like project-based work in a park. But essentially then from there, you know, consulted different things. Cause like after that point, you know, I feel like I did probably the same amount of work that someone would do in like 5 years, I did like in 18 months. Because it was like rapid fire. There were so many different projects happening at the same time. So I just learned a lot about curating, managing, and community engagement around those types of things. Really, I wouldn't say fast, but I did learn a lot at once. And then I took that experience, and since then, like right now, as a contractor, I manage a portion of Houston's civic art and design portfolio for new commissions, conservation, et cetera. And so it was just experience that built over time. It wasn't something, I don't even know where I learned the word civic art. I don't know when that came into play, but I did know what public art was at least maybe 10 years ago, but I'm not ashamed about like being late to certain terms. I'm okay with that. And I hope that you all are too, because that's just a process, and words change, the meaning of words change so often in our industry too, at least from my perspective. I mean, think about it, like, when did we start using the word like social practice? to talk about artwork. It wasn't 20 years ago, like, so it's like so many terms and ways that art and people who are creating the work is categorized. Sometimes it may be difficult to keep up if you've been head down in your practice. But in short, I'll say that it's just been a series of experiences where I just sharpened and started to understand my tools better over time. But then within that, being both on the new commission as well as the conservation side, I've learned about both what it takes to build these structures or create them with the artists, but also what does it take to preserve them, conserve or repair them, 10, 20 years down the road.
Okay, so like question or like, so like currently, well, since the past like year and a half, I've been like developing like this park here in Detroit that I want to do, where I'm like, understanding like the type of materials, like sculptures and, different things that, even like the road, like of the park and stuff, that would be considered like civil art design or like understanding like that, or is that like a public art?
You said a harp?
I mean, park.
Harp.
Yeah,
Okay.
so like basically like I've been like researching different materials for like, how like the road at the park gonna like kind of kind of move around like from the art part to the like the playscape to like, different like areas in the park, plus like, different sculptures and different like structures and stuff in the park.
It's both. I mean, there are many places where the words civic art and public art are interchangeable, but this is definitely, and there's not that much difference between the two.
Okay.
But the most important thing I would say, like there's public art, and then when you're talking about civic art I feel goes just a bit deeper in regards to the artwork's relationship with the community, whatever that community is. So for example, a new public art project is the park. Because it's a park though, it's civically engaged because it affects a group of people and you're making considerations for how you go about this work, I imagine, and how it would affect the people that are actually utilizing this space, right? There are some pre-existing considerations that you're taking that will affect the final design, or at least it should, right? Because it's not all about, unless it's just a sculpture, I couldn't even say it unless it's a sculpture you plop down in the middle of the park, but whatever it is, the bottom line when you're talking about public art or civic art, especially if it's in a functional space, the end game is not the art, it's the people. And that's the key difference. And if it's something different, then it's something different. But essentially, if you're placing a piece of art within a community or a communal space, at the end, if you want that art, especially if you want that art to stay there and be protected in many cases, it's about like having that piece of work, not necessarily be a representative of, but at least have the consideration of the people that are utilizing the space. So you're not gonna get rid of half the playground, for a sculpture and get rid of the community's favorite parts. Is it a swing set that's been there for 50 years that people have, connected, memories to? The better thing would be to, how can we incorporate this swing set into the overall piece? Or can that swing set then become part of the piece or the piece itself? So those are the considerations that you make between the two, but there isn't very much different between the words. So I would say that yours is, you could call it civic art, you could call it public art, but this would definitely go into that portfolio.
Okay. And then my other question is, what are the most unsexiest things of being a curator? Because I know like it's cool, we find artists and we create this beautiful like collective or single artist like exhibition, but what is the unsexy things about it?
Now that is actually a short answer, believe it or not. Emails, spreadsheets, and
invoices.
just to me, like a big part of the unsexy is anything that's related to like paper administration,
Okay.
because it is absolutely necessary. Like there are insurance policies and shipping arrangements and, you know, meetings and emails and, you know, checklists and, you know, there's so many things about the work that are not imaginative for
Mhm.
that big, beautiful, imaginative thing to happen. But it's just necessary. You know,
Yeah.
I would say the last thing, for example, like there's a piece in Shawnee's show that after it was fully installed, it's about 400 pounds. You know, that flag piece, Sadie, is almost 400 pounds.
Oh, wow.
I did not know that. Yeah. I
Yeah.
did.
So, but when it arrived, it was like maybe 100 or so pounds. But once all of the pieces were added to it, it's like almost 400 pounds. Why is this important? Because the unsexy part of the work is prior to the arrival of that work, connecting with, as a curator, connecting with your registrar and installer to make sure that they understand what is going to be necessary for the wall that this is going to be installed and to hold that weight plus some.
Mhm.
And then also being able to understand the difference between two people being able to lift this work onto the wall and install it onto a French cleat system versus what is it going to take that off the wall at double, almost triple the weight, which means it's going to have to be machinery involved. So planning that is unsexy, but one, it keeps you from ripping a hole into the wall and a piece getting destroyed, you know. And this is also about trusting partnerships and professionals, because I know nothing about that except for what I've learned from the people who are experts at it. I am not a person that installs artwork. And then the second part is safety. What if you tried to have the same two people come and deinstall that work and it comes off of the French cleats and now it's 400 pounds that they're trying to hold? The work gets damaged, people get hurt, right? So there's a lot of technical, unsexy things that, you know, I really don't enjoy. However, I'm okay with them because all of those things contribute to the quality of an exhibition, the quality of an experience, the ability for people to get paid, people to get paid in a timely, or compensated in a timely manner, you know, safety, and the ability also to document and press things forward. But if I could just dictate everything and go on about my life, I'd be fine with that too, if I didn't have to send another email for the rest of my life.
I lied to you. I got another question.
All right, I'll get one more.
Okay. Can you describe a time you failed in the road and what was the lesson you learned?
Which week? I laugh at that because, I mean, I feel like there are times where I feel like I fail a lot or have. But failure isn't fatal to me.
No. It's always a lesson.
So, I mean, I don't mean to say that too flippantly because there are times that I failed in my career that made me feel like I was dying. You know, because there was some death, there was some ego death. There was possibly the grief of what I thought what a particular relationship or working relationship would be. But I look at those things differently now. So I would say that I won't give you one particular instance, but I would say overall, I've had a couple of experiences, more so early on in my career, where I experienced failure due to being a bit too flexible, sort of like, what's the word you use now? Being a people pleaser in your personal life, you can go back and forth with how beneficial or destructive that is. You know, work that out for yourself. I don't think it's a good place to be for a number of reasons. Somebody might feel differently. In business, it's absolutely destructive. Because if you have to extend, if you not have to, if you choose to extend beyond what you know is best, just because, like I said early on in my career, thinking that being in a service-based business as a consultant, like you just have to make it work for your client, whatever it means. If it means I got to meet with you at 5:30 in the morning on the phone, or this or that, or them not taking your advice, but then you're still beholden to certain milestones or deadlines or etc. That's not good, because one, you're not teaching them what it really takes to win. Two, you're hyperextending yourself. And three, you'll always be expected to perform in a space of dysfunction at some point. And so I failed several times, particularly early on in my career, trying to move with clients that had decidedly been, they'd decidedly been undisciplined in their own dealings. And their idea was really just to have someone sort of fill in the gaps and kind of enable them to continue to work as they were, not someone to come on board to support them in evolving their practice as an arts institution or artist, etc. If you want things to stay the same now, if you want me, you're not looking for the same thing. You are not looking for the same thing. You may be looking for the same space, it may be the same narrative, but you are looking for, if you are coming to me, you are looking for some space of disruption. You are looking for some space of awakening or rethinking, recalibrating or re-energizing or energizing or sprouting an idea. And so now that I take that on wholeheartedly as both an administrator and as a curator, it also has made some of the choices, well, all the choices that I make a bit more opaque. Like, it's like, I know who I'm not a fit for and who's not a fit for me. And it's really important as a curator and as an artist, as an administrator, for you to know that those choices go both ways. Start that. It's like, you decide where your boundaries are, and they don't have to be an electric fence, but what your halo is like. What is your, if you want to go softer, but it's still true, what is your halo? What is your aura? What is that space around you like? And the how you want to go about your work. Again, not being married to a title, but how do you want to experience the work that you do? And that will tell you whether or not an opportunity is a good opportunity for you or a great opportunity for someone else. And in that case, you can make the decision. I know we only got a few more.
That was helpful. Thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome. I know we only got a few minutes left. Sadie, did you have anything, or anyone else?
I'd like to leave it open for anyone else that has questions.
What?
I'd like to leave it open for anyone else that has questions.
Oh, okay. Anyone else? What about you, Asia?
I don't have any questions. I think you summed it up. You definitely gave a clear overstanding of the of what it's like to be a curator and just all of these various different things. I think you're fabulous. Okay. I appreciate you on a whole nother level. I remember looking at your LinkedIn, and your title is I forget, it was like can you say
Cultural architect.
Cultural architect?
Yeah.
Can you explain that just very briefly? Nothing,
Oh no, I worked on that one. So it's like, because it was like I went from cultural producer, and before that it was like this and that. And the thing is that it's just like, I'm a builder. It's being architecturally minded and really truly building spaces, whether they're physical spaces like civic art and design or projects or festivals or this, that, and the other, but also building a system of behaviors and networks that affect each other. And so ecosystem is a real thing, and ecosystem isn't the same thing as environment, you know? And so really understanding, going back to not just community, what is, because everyone that's in your ecosystem is not in your community, okay? So like, what does it mean to be in your hyperlocal arts ecosystem? What does it mean to build and create around that? What does it mean to be in a global ecosystem? And what are we building? And so, yeah, so I consider myself a cultural architect for that reason, because it doesn't matter the medium or whether it's my practice or administration, it's all about constructing and deconstructing multiple cultural narratives across both various spaces, whether it's physical space or in thought.
It's dope. We only got like 2 minutes left. Can you all talk about some projects that you are currently working on, and how can we find you and you know, be a part of what what you're out here producing?
Yeah, I'll start. And first, like, thank you for like speaking of space, you know, creating space, not just for these series of talks, like information sharing is like so key, but also investing in physical space and residencies and all these things, like it's so necessary. You know, you're giving space for people to birth so many things and ideas. And so I just want to say I appreciate you continuously for keeping on and creating these spaces for people to be seated, nurtured, and also growing and challenging themselves in their practice. Right now, we have exhibitions up at the August Wilson African American Cultural Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Next summer, Ming Smith, Feel in the Future opens at the Contemporary Arts Museum of Houston. There are several shows here right now. Sadie has a couple of things she may want to talk about, but there are many other, you know, exhibitions and, you know, all those different things. I would say if you want to, Sadie is a bit more dynamic on Instagram. I do post to my stories more than I post to my page. We'll see if that ever changes. But I do connect with people on Instagram. I'm at Janice Bond, and my website is www.janicebond.com. There is a contact form on my website, and I do respond to those emails. People do email me. I do email them back. Yeah, many different things, more to be announced soon, but for the most part, I think the most exciting thing is like some of the work in Pittsburgh and some things that are coming up in Chicago pretty soon. And Sadie, you got something coming up in July?
Yes, I can hop on. I'm currently working with Janice at August Wilson Center in Pittsburgh, and then also working here in Chicago with a local orchestra called the Chicago Sinfonietta, doing small orchestral performances throughout the city, and also creating opportunities for orchestra members to collaborate with other artists from different disciplines and different genres of music to create new works in neighborhoods on the south and west side of Chicago. And I'm also a faculty at the Art Institute. I'm also a resident DJ on radio stations here, Vocalo, which is a sister radio to WBEZ, and then Lumpin Radio, which is also started off as an independent radio station, and Wave Farm Radio that's based in New York. What else? I also perform as a DJ, which I have performances at the Taste of Chicago, and then also at the Silver and Black Party. And then another big event that we're doing with Chicago Sinfonietta is called More Life. That's also happening in July. That's celebrating local designers in street couture. And other things, of course, to be announced coming up as well. But I do post on Instagram more than Facebook. So my Instagram is Woods Sadie, WOODSADIE, 1S.
And the last thing I'll say before we hop off is this. Sadie and I have been friends for a long time. But also, I'm not involved in all of her projects. She's not involved in all of mine. Although we are partners, although we are collaborators, we do make our independent space. And the thing is that we come to the table and we support each other in so many different ways. There are times where I've been leads of projects and she just had to come in. There's, I'm gonna be supporting her for her More Life event. And it's a subordinate role. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, sometimes we're up here with it and it's a big show and it's an opening and it's exciting. Sometimes it's just like me with a clipboard, and really just driving the idea home that may not even be mine. So I think that as an artist and curator, one of the last things I could say is that understand that your peers are not always your friends, but sometimes they are, and that's fantastic. And so if your creative peers happen to be your friends, then that is a beautiful opportunity to collaborate and build horizontally. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be involved and completely engulfed and immersed in each other's practice. And that's okay too. Just find those natural and or fitting, because it may push you all, it may not be completely natural, but these aligned entry and intersecting points where you can build on top of each other's experience. And so I would say that if I would advise you all something, it'd be really important for you to lean into that and see where you would grow from there. And thank you again for having me.
It's my pleasure. We hope to have you at Norwest. Come do something with us.
Yeah, we have to get out there.
Yeah. Come to the D yet again. You and Sadie have stayed at Womxnhouse at one point. So I love that that you all were able to just experience that house, this house, because I'm sitting in it, when before all of the Womxnhouse festivities kicked off. So so what it's like for it to just be my regular home. But I'm excited to be able to share this with with all people, and have this space be I had plenty of sisters. I had 3 sisters, and it was a house full of women all the time. So just to be able to have this space for women to to commune, to chit chat, to bare their souls, to encourage each other and lift each other up. I'm excited about sharing this space with everybody. So, and thank you for being on today. Thank you, Sadie, and I'll see you soon as well, working on some projects with the Black techno here in Detroit. So I'm looking forward to that too.
Ooh, exciting. Well, thank you again. All of you all, feel free, I'll say it openly, reach out, connect. If you have more questions, I'm happy to support where I can. I'm not hard to find. May just take time sometimes to respond, just be honest. so I appreciate y'all, and I just hope to be back in community and conversation with you all soon.
Okay, and it's janicebond.com, you said?
Yes, ma'am.
That's the easy one. All right.
Thank you.
That concludes it. Go ahead, Sadie.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. And I also can be reached if you want to reach out at sadiewoods.com. We got pretty easy websites. janicebond.com, sadiewoods.com.
Keep it simple.
Yes.
All right, y'all have a great evening. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Everybody.